What about this remarkable game at Crawley? The Bradford 1, Crawley 2 league match, Perry. What happens is, at the end of the game, and the whistle's already gone, 5 players get sent off. Shouldn't the game have been abandoned anyway, in retrospect?
No, you
can't have that going on.
Well, you can't abandon it at the end of the game because the game's finished. Well, you can't just say, oh, we're abandoning this game because the whistle had blown. I'm amazed that people are surprised that this happens. It really amazes me because you've got 22 finely tuned athletes. The adrenaline's pumping. The emotions are flying. They're playing under pressure. Crawley going for promotion. Bradford are trying to keep off the bottom of the league. And then you can tell in the game it just needs one incident to spark it. And then people. You're talking about human beings.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Some people then can't control it. You should be able to control them.
Yeah.
But on the brawling side of it, I was not involved, but I was there when the brawl at Old Trafford. And secretly...
Pizzagate?
No, that was...
I'm talking about
in 1990.
Exactly,
So in the dressing room afterwards, George Graham's like, brilliant lads, you've all got to stick together. If you see one of your mates get hit on the street, you'd go and pile in and help him out. Publicly, the club issued a statement saying it's a disgrace, we don't condone our players' behaviour, they all be fined, we all deal it within house. But I said privately, George Graham's like, good chaps, get yourselves weighed in there.
OK, let's get up onto the Skype wall. I'll tell you why. When anything happens involving a referee, we like to go to the man who is the expert on these sort of issues, the man who knows everything about control and discipline, both of himself and a football match. It is, of course, Jeff Winter, who's with us now. Jeff, good evening to you, pal.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Yeah, Jeff, my view on this one is that I think the game should have been abandoned in retrospect. Therefore, I think that neither team should have taken any points from it and both teams should have points deducted. And I'll tell you why, Jeff, because we all have a laugh in this country when we see those sort of scenes break out in South America or somewhere on the continent. We think it's something that's never come to the game in this country, and it shouldn't come to the game in this country. And I think the harshest punishments should be meted out to the two clubs.
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me of the Middlesbrough District Sunday Morning League when I was just starting off, either that or an ice hockey match. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the FA will come down on them like a ton of bricks, but I can't, other than what Perry was saying, the Arsenal-Manchester United game all those years ago, it's not very often that you see a brawl like that. I mean, that really was pub football, and very, very surprising. And I think the referee did quite well to stand back and just monitor what was going on, because nowadays with television of every game, he could said it easy to put a report in and say, look, to the FA, this happened at the end of the game, look at the incidents, as I'm sure they will do, and sort it out. But you know, between him and his two assistants, the fourth official, they've obviously got 5 players, and give them respective reports, red cards after the final whistle.
Jeff, I agree with you. I think the referee was called Ian Williamson.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And sometimes you get referees who try and break things up. It's all right when it's like 2 players, individual players. When it's a mass brawl, I think he took a leaf out of rugby. When you see rugby brawls or rugby and rugby league, the referee just stays completely out of the way and he lets people get on with it, so then he can look at subjectively what's going on, so he doesn't get involved in the motion, in the emotions of it.
That is the advice that referees receive. You shouldn't get involved, because I mean, I went against the grain a little bit. If it was 2 players, I thought, well, if I could get in amongst them, get them apart from each other, perhaps we save punches being thrown, we save players being sent off. But if a referee does put his head in the middle of it and fists are being thrown, it's quite easy that the referee could get himself thumped, not intentionally, but standing back, as you say, like they do in rugby, and just trying, because I mean, there were so many players involved. I mean, it looked like Andrew Davies, a Middlesbrough lad, was in there at the outset, but then there were several players coming and throwing punches. So to stand back, stay calm, and just pick people out. What the referee can't actually do after the final whistle is issue red cards. But what he can do is report the incident, and it'll be treated as a red card offence. And I think with Andrew Davies, he's already been sent off twice this season, so he's looking at a minimum 5-match ban, so his season's nearly over. And with Crawley right in the middle of the promotion pack, if they get a few players suspended, it's gonna cost them dearly.
Yeah, Jeff, sorry, Perry. The reason I think the game should be punitive in the biggest way is you've just said, oh well, the ref, did the right thing. thing and stood back. You said that, Perry.
Yep.
Well, I've seen it 4 times on television, and I have to say, I can't find a player on the pitch who was not involved in the brawl. And how on earth the referee was able to allocate blame to individuals...
No, it's easy.
...is, to me,
No, it's not. No, it's easy because... If he's watching it, right, with a clinical view, you can gauge who's trying to break it up, who's actually trying to stop people fighting, and who's throwing punches. So it seems to me the 5 lads that he's cited were the ones that he'd have looked and gone, right, you're the perpetrators, you're the ones who've been throwing haymakers, so therefore you're the cause. Thing I'd like to ask Jeff, what do you think about stewards running on the pitch and getting involved, Jeff? Because I think sometimes that adds to the problem.
Yeah.
I've never been, this might be a little bit controversial, but I've never been the greatest fan of stewards when there's trouble. You know, I mean, the stewards are from the home club.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, we've had problems in the past after games with accusations of stewards getting involved and perhaps causing more problems than they've sorted out. But, you know, what is actually happening there? If there weren't any police at the ground, the stewards do have a jurisdiction there to stop problems. And if they'd been fighting on the terraces, there'd no doubt have been in amongst the fans trying to pull them apart. So I think they came onto the pitch to try and, you know, lessen the situation. But by then it had gone. But the point Perry made is a very good one. In amongst that, you know, there was a couple of players that were sort of, the facial expressions and the body language was sort of saying, calm down, and they were dragging players away. So whilst possibly virtually all of the players were involved in the incident, it wasn't all of them that were involved in the aggression. And certainly if the referee hasn't got all the main culprits, I'm sure by now the FA and everyone else will have looked at that video over and over again, and there is the possibility that, you know, certainly both clubs are going to be charged for not controlling the players, and you know, some other players may get a knock on the door and another, you know, a minimum 3-match ban because they were guilty of violent conduct, and that, you know, is a minimum 3-match ban.
Sure, it was a horrible scene. Did you have to do it yourself, Jeff? You ever had to go down the tunnel and book and send people off retrospectively?
The best one I ever had was actually before a game, a vital relegation battle at Valley Parade, Bradford City against Wimbledon. And if Perry will know, having played on that ground, it is the narrowest tunnel in the football league, in the Premier League. Right. Two players can't stand side by side. And Wimbledon came down the tunnel. Big John Hartson, I think, was captain on the day, and it kicked off in the tunnel before we actually got onto the pitch. But, you know, after the game, there's words, there's handbags sometimes in the tunnel. But, you know, I was involved in over a couple of thousand games of football now. I don't recall, other than in the pub leagues, ever seeing punches being thrown like they were last night.
No, it was terrible. Jeff, we've got to move on, mate, because we've got lots to talk about. But once again, extremely grateful for your views on this show. As always, incisive and, of course, very informative. Thank you very much indeed.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Thanks,
by the way, I'd just like to say, Mike, you wouldn't mess about with Jeff. Honestly, no, because he's a big unit anyway.
Really?
So I think sometimes referees' body language can control games and just take no nonsense.
Webb's got a big chap, isn't he?
Yeah, but again, he's very officious, isn't he? He's very demonstrative in his actions. Because you've got 22 players on a football pitch, and I say it's the adrenaline, testosterone comes out, and then they're human beings. It's going to be no different to any other walk of life.
Absolutely. Stay ahead of the game with Sports Tonight Live. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for Sports Tonight Live on Facebook and like our fan page. Follow Sports Tonight TV on Twitter and tweet us your thoughts and opinions. Sports Tonight Live, it's the platform for the fans.